Alright, so here we are in week 5, and now we've gotten through the HTML, the CSS, and now this is, and by the way, just FYI, these 2 weeks where you got introduced to these concepts, this is pretty much all you're going to do in CIT85, because this is just giving you that beginning view of it, that beginner's, skill set, and then you'll learn more in depth. Obviously, by taking it for a whole 9 weeks, 3 in a class, those things. And Todd does a great job, I think, and he introduces Flexbox and some other really important technologies. So at this point, we are then deviating from what that class is doing because he is not going to cover what we're covering next. And the reason I cover Bootstrap, even though there are some developers that will kind of poo-poo Bootstrap, meaning, they say, well, you should really know how to use HTML and CSS to create responsive websites, to have a particular design. You should know how to do that. Well, yeah, you should ultimately know how to do that. But there is definitely going to be, I'm almost telling you, 100% in your lifetime, I could be wrong, where somebody's going to give you a Bootstrap site. And so understanding how that Bootstrap site works is really important, understanding what the grid system is. So I find it, and I've had this confirmed with developers that I know, is that we still need to teach Bootstrap, okay, because it is still it's so pervasive out on the web, okay. So we're going to use Travis Media again. And so this time you're going to do the first 36 minutes, okay? So we'll do the next 36 on our Thursday night item. I want to show you the setup that I'm gonna actually follow along with him. I was actually thinking about doing a CDN version of this, but I'll show you what I mean by that in a second. But in the setup, he goes over and he downloads Bootstrap. So just FYI, and he's going to use version 3. And I would recommend 3, but if you wanted to go use 4, because it's the latest and greatest, you can do that as well. So he even, his video is about a year old, and he even poo-poos a little bit 4, but 4's been out for a while now. You can see what's here, and if you want to do that, you can. But he's going to use version 3. And the latest version is 3.33. So one thing I just want to be clear about, when you go to the Bootstrap site, right, one thing you're going to choose up here is the version number. And then what I would do is go down to 3.37. And then this tracks along much more directly with what he does in the videos. And then what he does is the getting started. And then on the getting started, he shows you how to download. And then he shows you how to remove some files. This is what I was talking about. There is another way, and actually I think I may look at this when we do the next part of this, which is updating our GitHub sites. You could actually use what's called the CDN version, and then what you can do is not have to load the physical files. You can just reference the files that are out on, and in this case, max CDN, where the Bootstrap files are living. And this is a very common thing that you see, especially when you want to do quick development and you don't want to have to deal with these files. But it's a good idea. So let me tell you how I did this, just because there may, and at least on the Mac, like here, and I created he said he does this as well, Bootstrap cheat sheet, and this should live at the same level as these other 2 folders that we've created for HTML and CSS. And then inside of here, these are the 3 folders that you will download. So I downloaded them, got them down into my download files, right? So here they were. Where are they at? I must have put them somewhere. I must have already unzipped them somewhere. But anyway, you unzip those files. Oh, sorry, there it is. I must have actually moved them out of there. So that's the 3 folders. And I know there's probably a way, and I just haven't figured it out. You could just drag these over. But what I found is when I did that, it actually adds to the workspace and not into the structure. And I just didn't play with it long enough. And I'm like, yeah, I know how to do this. It's pretty simple. So for me, I just opened another window, right? And then I moved them. So here's my desktop. I moved them into here, and then I moved them into private, and then the lectures and Bootstrap. So then I just copied them, dragged them over from here into here. Okay, so if you want to play around and figure out how to add them just by dragging them into here, I probably will figure it out later just because I want to know as well. So what you can see here is that, and this is the part obviously he doesn't cover, which is the version control, right? So I've added several files, and as a matter of fact, I do recommend you getting rid of the files that he talks about as well, and then just so it makes your uploads, and it just makes it cleaner to do, right? So get status here. Right, so that's the other thing I added, and that's actually the next thing, so I'll get to that in a second. So maybe I'll wait to do the workflow until we get all the way through. But this is what you're going to want to set up. This is what I want to see when you're done. Okay, so you'll follow the 36 minutes here, and then you can stop and submit that work. Okay, so the other item that we have this week is I want you to do two things. I want you to actually add Bootstrap into your GitHub Pages file, okay, your GitHub Pages site. And so I'm actually not going to walk you through this because at this point you should know how, and I want to see if you can get through that without my help. If you want, I'll just show you quickly how I would just do the CDN version of this, and then once you're done, okay, so let me slow down for a minute. So the first thing I want you to do is add a git ignore file. Now this is an important file that I probably should have done sooner, but I didn't. I remember thinking I was going to, and I didn't for this class. And so this is an example of what would go in this file. And this is a file that tells GitHub, hey, ignore these particular files that I will have on my system. And you may or may not have these files yet, but this is just kind of the standard setup as you go and do more Visual Studio setup or work. Now, if you're using another editor, you're just going to want to go find what that standard setup is. It's all over the web. All you have to do is search for. Now, I actually named it git ignore 2 words, but the actual file is here. That's the actual file name. So to add this file, and by the way, I want you to add this file to all 3 repos, okay? You only have to show me one of them, and what I mean by that is on the print screen that you're going to submit for this week, because you're going to give us an updated link to your GitHub pages with showing how you've implemented Bootstrap, at least a handful of features here into that, and then give us a print screen of that you added the git ignore. But let me walk you through the git ignore. So in this case, I've already created mine, but it's really important, right, and actually, I just realized I put it in the wrong space. So this is a pretty good example, right? So I've actually put it in here, and where it wants to live, where it needs to live, is in the root of the folder that you're working on, in this case, the repo. So I'm going to show you this. If I just click, drag, and drop that, click, right there, it should be moving it. Yeah, there we go. Okay, let's see. Yeah, that's where I want it. So in this case, and that's why it's really important, and this is not uncommon until you get a little more aware. So I made the mistake. It's good to show mistakes because that's how you learn how to fix things, or that's how you learn actually. So in this case, what you're going to want to do, and you could actually have the README file clicked and then do a new file and then call it git ignore, start with the dot, git ignore, no extension, and then there you can just copy and paste. Again, if you're using VS Code, if you're using something else, just grab some kind of standard setup for that. Okay? So let me go back here. So I'm not going to show you. I tell you what, I said I wouldn't, but I'm going to go ahead and open up my I want to save. Let me think. Do you want to save the workspace? Yeah, that's fine. Oh, so actually this is one of those files. This is actually this workspace. This is why I didn't like the drag. So I actually don't want to do this. The workspace is really all the other files that you have open here. So actually I don't want to save this. So I'm glad I saw that. So I'm going to load this. I'm not going to save that workspace file. I'll make sure everything's there in a second. So in this index file, right now, I think you may have a font, right? Google font. But in order to add Bootstrap to this, Okay, so let me just look at this file real quick. Let's do a few command palette, open in a browser. Right, that's where it was at. Okay, so one easy way you could do this, and now you can move the files over. I think that's fine to do it as well. But once to use the CDN version, I believe all you'd have to do here is copy this style, this link style, and then it gives it a reference to the CDN. And then if you wanted to, you could use the optional themes. I believe you can get away with not using the JavaScript here, but again, this gives CDN versions of those as well. And so what I could do right here, right, so I have a CSS file already set up, we played with it. So what I could do is just copy that, paste that in, right? Now the question would be, at this point, how did it change my my file? Let's actually go look real quick, right? So actually it got rid of some of my styles, and the answer to why that would be true is that when I've set up some of these, I haven't used some of the classes that you're going to learn in Bootstrap, right? So that's why I'm doing this exercise, is to show you, right? So this was your own style CSS file, and when we copied this in, we now this file is not being used. We could still use it. It's not a problem to use it. You could have more than one style sheet. That's totally okay. But I'm having you convert your GitHub pages into a Bootstrap, because that's ultimately the type of framework we're going to use for your projects. Okay? Okay, so what I want you to do here, and I'm not going to walk you through it because I actually want you to do this on your own. Where was I at? Right. I want you to, because you've now learned in this first part of the Bootstrap tutorial how to do some of the basic, I think, hero image, maybe some links, so choose like 5 or 6 things maybe that you'd want to put into your GitHub pages, just as an example to show that you know how to do that. Okay? All right, so in here, give us a link to your new GitHub pages with Bootstrap. Right? And then also a print screen of the git ignore. And just to be clear, let me go back to my editor now, because I actually could do version control here, but I'm actually going to open up the one I was playing with earlier just to see. Good, so everything's there, looks good, and I still have my git status. Right, so I have some files, I have a git ignore, and then I have that whole Bootstrap thing. That's perfect. So I'm going to do git add star, and here's where it's nice to have decreased all those files, because I don't have as many to upload. And now we have those added, so I do git commit -m, adding Bootstrap folder and files. Let me make sure. Oh, very good. I'm glad I didn't hit enter here, because it's really important that I actually use m here, because if I use n, it'll do something very different, right? So do that. Good, good. So git push. Good. So now it's going to push all those files up for me. And then what I would do here is I'd go up to my 82 private, and what I will see now, it's coming in. And there's my Bootstrap. So what I'd want to do, this is the link I'd want to submit for my lecture for this week when you get that done. Okay, so again, I hope you find this fun. I really like teaching Bootstrap, because it makes getting something done really fast, which he talks about quick development in here. And again, it's just something, my guess is if you continue on in this industry, you're going to find out about that. All right, have a great one. Talk to you later.